The Guardians are coming off what looks like their worst homestand of the season so far. We'll tell you whether or not it's as bad as it looks and prospects who are changing positions.
Tanner Bibee of the Guardians, and you're listening to Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, the Guardians have not had a whole lot of off days so far this season. They're going to get two. Well, they have two, Thursday and now Monday, and it seems like they're coming at the right time to regroup. The Guardians go 2-4 in the homestand. We're going to talk about whether or not it was as bad as it seemed. We'll talk about draft notables from regionals and College World Series this weekend. We'll talk about prospects who are learning new positions, but we're starting off with the Guardians homestand and whether or not it's just a bad week or if there are signs to be concerned about. Here on Locked On Guardians, your only daily Cleveland Guardians podcast. It covers your team every day from the majors, the minors, the draft, and everything in between. We'll do that all today with Jeff Ellis on the other side of the microphone and screen. Been here for 8 years. Justin Lada here. Been here for 4. We've both been covering the Guardians minor league system in the draft for the last 19 years. Today's episode also brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. All right, there's no doubt this was an ugly homestand. Washington came in and pummeled Cleveland until game 3 of the series. Had a nice night Friday against the Red Sox. They scored 4 runs in the first inning after going, 8 games in a row, scoring 3 or less. So they gave us 4 runs in the first inning, and then they decided not to score anymore. They didn't decide not to score, but they ended up not scoring anymore after that. Saturday was just downright ugly. And then Sunday, I think they had a chance to win the game, Jeff, and they didn't because they made some bad decisions consecutively that really hurt them. So I don't know, and everyone's going to say, oh, it's on vote for this or it's on vote for that. I think really this one comes down to some poor player decisions. There was one decision that I think frustrates me with Stephen Vogt, at least in terms of bullpen use, which we'll get into. But I don't know, Jeff, is this just a frustrating homestand? Or is there something that really concerns you that this is going to be an extended issue? Because they just came off a road trip. They were 6-1. Now they went 2-4 at home.
There are things that I am concerned about. I think long term, we definitely saw the lack of left-handed pen options over this weekend. That's really what stands out more than anything else,
which we've noted before.
Yeah, I think the big thing to me on Sunday is one. You point out to me, it's like the Connor Wong double that led to the second run for Boston was not a double, and I don't know how the umpire blew it. It was a 1.5 foul right in front of the umpire, and because of it being in front of the umpire, even though he completely blew it, you can't challenge. Like that's also insane to me that like he can just completely blow a call, and because it was in front of him, it
was literally right in front of him.
Yeah, it's like he got it wrong. Like people get things wrong. Like you should be allowed to challenge that. Instead, that ends up leading to a run, and then because of terrible choices with the ABS challenge system by Jose, it was there's no point to challenging in that situation. Like he shouldn't be challenging in that situation and blowing their last one. And Stuart Fairchild, Justin and I had a big debate off air. Here's my general view. If you were Stuart Fairchild, it's a 3-2 count. You would have had a terrible weekend. If I am that pitcher on the other side, the last thing I'm doing is walking him. I'm putting a pitch in play. You got to swing at it. That was a clear strike. He shouldn't have challenged it. So since they had no challenges left, when Tim Herrin does strike out, why am I blanking on who he struck out there? Weiler Abreu. He struck out Abreu. It's clear he struck out Abreu. Blown call. Second blown call of the game. Huge ramifications because that inning should be over at that point. It should be a 4-2 game as you're heading into the that would have been the end of the 7th. Should have been a 4-2 game as you go into the 8th. Then you have Gaddis in the 8th, and you have Cade Smith in the 9th, and you win. The umpire, the team didn't play great. Don't get me wrong, but the 3-1 game. I'm sorry, 4-2 game. No matter what here, the umpiring blew 2 critical calls and gave this game away. They gave 2 extra outs to a team that came back to hurt this team. Those were monstrous missed calls. You all of a sudden, instead of running out, Hewer, who's only here because for a limited time, let's be honest, and going to the situation they had to go to, Like, none of that should have happened. None of that should have mattered. It should have been 4-2 heading into the 8th. You get to Gaddis, you get to Smith, and all of a sudden we win this series, and it has a much different view. So am I worried big picture? No. Am I worried about left-handed pitching in the bullpen? Yes. But I think you can look at Sunday. I know people will be like, well, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. Bottom line, 2 massive mistakes by the umpiring crew led to this loss.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not going to put 100% of anything on the umpires because.
Oh, I am. This was them blowing it. Like, I mean, the one was right in front of him. Any fool could have called that. I don't know how he gets that wrong. Like, that is just a terrible call. And then, that is a hard pitch. But, and I'll say this, like, in defense of the umpire in that situation, Tim Herrin is so wild. He's not going to get that call. He is not going to get that call. And that's why it's dangerous to go to him in that situation. Everyone knows that he is having problems hitting the zone. But that's why they need to keep their challenges and not have 2 terrible ABS challenges. So that is where I really get frustrated with this team, is the ABS continuing just to be awful.
Yeah, my point of contention here too is, and by the way, so specified fair foul ball calls per MLB, if it involves a decision regarding whether or not a batted ball was foul, are reviewable only on balls that first land at or beyond the set position of the umpire. So in order for this to be a challengeable call, it would have had to go over the umpire's head. So they're assuming that if the ball is in front of the umpire, he'll be positioned properly to see it. And he was in great position to see it. And he messed it up. It was a bad call. The second part here is, it's not challengeable. The second part here is I don't disagree with the, in a vacuum, Stuart Fairchild challenging the call at that inflection point of the game. It's a 3-2 count. The bases are loaded. If it's ball 4, you get a run. You pass the baton to Austin Hedges, who, had a 2-run single earlier in the game. Whatever. In a vacuum, that situation makes sense, right? But 2 things you said are correct. You got to swing. It's 3-2. Ranger Suarez is a good pitcher. He executed a great pitch that was on the borderline. I don't think it was a pitch that was a bad call to challenge because it was very borderline. The problem is, A, you're Stuart Fairchild. You're 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts at that point. You haven't made any contact. And I was sitting in my seat the game, and I was like, if I'm him, I hope he doesn't swing, because the odds of him getting a hit or do anything with the ball at that point, given how he'd swung the bat so far, were almost 0. So I said, he's either going to walk. That's the only thing he could do, is hope for a walk. And I was fine with him not swinging. And I think the ball was close enough where you can say, not a terrible challenge, but the problem is Stuart Fairchild's not the guy who should be using that call. Like, it's got, and God, I'm almost at the point where I'm like, should any Guardians hitters actually be challenging anything unless it's egregiously bad? Because Guardians hitters have been miserably bad. Hedges and Bailey behind the plate, great. But as far as hitters go, they've been miserably bad at ABS challenges. I mean, even Steven Kwan and Jose, who you thought going into this would be great at this, have not been good at all. So there's that issue. And my other issue here, too, is bullpen usage. You bring in Tim Herrin. You don't have another lefty to go to in that situation. So I don't know who else you go to. I really don't. So I don't have a problem going to Tim Herrin. It is what it is. Herrin is having a tough year. He's not throwing strikes. He's getting by because he's pitching out of high leverage situations. Well, you brought him into a situation that was high leverage already. You didn't start the inning with him. Colin Holderman, who's been really great for Cleveland, had a bad day. It happens. He gave up a hit. He walked a batter. He got an out. I can't get mad at him because relievers can't be perfect all the time. And
they were hoping to do good. Holderman to Gaddis to Smith, which we talked about,
yes.
Right? And then when it,
yes. And Holderman had a bad day. It happens. So I can't get mad at him because, it's like a field goal kicker making 9 of 10 field goals. He's going to miss one. It happens. But Herrin was, should have been out of the inning. He got gypped a little bit by that call and the fact they didn't have a challenge left, which hurts. But then you're warming up Cody Hoyer, who I think Cody Hoyer has a live arm. He's got good stuff. He's electric. But he's the guy you bring in when you're down a run or two. You don't bring him in a high leverage spot, which is why I get why he was warming up. But they didn't even have Hunter Gaddis up. He wasn't even up. So it feels like the assumption was, well, if Herrin gets out of this, we look great. If he blows it, we bring in a low leverage reliever to mop it up. And what happened? Herrin blew it, even though he got gypped a little bit. They brought in Hoyer, and
he got hosed.
He got screwed, yes. And then they brought in Hoyer, who made it worse. Why? Okay, at that point, Herrin blew it, even if he got screwed. Ended up going the wrong way for them. Why not have Gaddis in to try to stop the bleeding rather than throw in a low leverage arm? They are so rigid when it comes to, okay, we're down a run or two. Hunter Gaddis can't pitch. Eric Sabrowski can't pitch. Cade Smith can't pitch. Why can't we bring in relievers that are good to try to keep in the playoffs? You'll do this. You'll do it where you're down 5-4 and you're trying to keep it a 5-4 game. You have an off day on Monday. Why not try to keep this a 5-4 game or whatever it was instead of saying, nah, we're just going to go to Cody Hoyer and hope for the best? And I get you say we trust all of our bullpen guys. You have to, but why not try to keep this game close and winnable after yesterday's game was a disaster and you have an off day Monday? That's my issue with the bullpen usage. That's the one place today where I think the team messed up. And they had chances to get more runs. They didn't. So there is that. All right, we'll continue to talk about
right.
Jeff, we'll continue to talk about this game on the other side, and we'll also talk about a prospect changing positions, and would love to talk some college baseball because it's been a wild opening weekend of regionals, and there have been some fun Guardians draft prospects that we could talk about. Nothing like enjoying a good time watching your favorite team, whether that's the Guardians or maybe going to see your favorite artist in concert. It's even better when you watch it live. There's excitement there, fans, shared community. And the only problem is getting tickets to any of those events. They can feel like a grind. You might have long queues for a concert or big event. You might get surprise fees at checkout for any baseball game, honestly. And that is why you need Game Time. It's the app that gives the advantage back to fans like us with constant innovation. 2 taps and you get an amazing tickets and a great experience in just a few taps. Simple to use. The Game Time guarantee means you get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time at the best price. And the best part is the fees are included. So the price you see is the price you pay. No surprise there. My wife, I know, is going to see Benson Boone this year because of Game Time. Made it very easy and quicker to find better priced tickets very quickly. 2 taps, you're done. No stress, no hidden fees, great seats and minutes. That is what makes it easy to do this. Even last minute. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use the code LOCKDOWN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. To create your account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Guardians your first listen tonight, every day, wherever you should get podcasts. Check out the Everydayer Club. It gets you access to all of the episodes of our show ad-free. Also gets you access to a private Discord server where Jeff and I are chatting with other fans of the Guardians, listeners of the show, as well as other hosts from Locked On, all the teams and networks you might listen to. If you're, a fan of the Cavs or the Browns or the Bills, the Blue Jackets, there is a Discord channel for you to chat with the hosts and other fans of those teams. Go to LockedOnGuardians.supercast.com to learn more. Check the link in the show notes. You can get a 7-day free trial at any time. All right. Was that enough of a diatribe there, Jeff, that I was mad about bullpen usage? Or am I just old man yelling at cloud? I don't know.
It's like going back and just that situation in general. It's like I was nervous about Herrin going in because of exactly what happened. And
even if you should have gotten out of it, yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like we know that the lefty situation is going to be what it is. It's impossible to replicate Sabrowski because he was arguably the best left-hand reliever in baseball this year. We're missing him right now. This team is 100% missing him. We're missing him as fans. Going to going to no, I'm not reading the pre-dance cycle right now. Going to Tim Herrin is. That call actually should have worked out. And then, like I said, it would have been set up. But just the umpires today decided it was Boston's game to win. And they made 2 terrible calls. And again, people would be like, you're letting off this team. And there were moments like Brian Rocchio. I wish he was as fast as he thought he was, because then that would have been another bonus run on that double play. It's like Rocchio had a great game, though. Like, it's just that one moment where, and that seemed to be kind of the story of the last 6 games, where it's like, they had so many doubles on Saturday, they didn't get anything out of it. Like, they just are not, they put everything together in the first inning on Friday and then nothing after that. We need a little more consistency, a little more of hitting when guys are on base. It's been a rough month. It's going to be interesting to see. It sounds like Angel's injury isn't too big, but even before his injury, he had been below average this month, and his value was greatly tied to the fact he had 4 home runs. So it's going to be interesting to see how this team goes.
Fairchild.
I mean, it's hard to say what isn't better than Stuart Fairchild. It was a rough, which again, let's point out that like Stuart Fairchild tearing up AAA. I'll go back to Owen Miller was hitting 400 when they called him up, and he is still AAA numbers. Really, you have to look under the hood. The surface numbers don't matter worth a hill of beans. You really have to look under the hood to get any value out of it. Yeah,
especially not in Columbus. Absolutely. I know someone in the comments is going to say, you guys didn't talk about Tanner Bibee. He was fine today. He was fine. Was he great? No. He got screwed by the Wong double. He gave up a home run to Jarren Duran in the first pitch. That was, man,
annoying.
I'd say what the air in the stadium just totally let out. I was like, oh, we can't be doing this again. No. But then he settled down after that. And then, he got, was he great today? No, he was solid. He was fine.
You'll take 3 over 5 more often than not from most pitchers.
And I want to say too, like multiple things can be true at once. I think we have to remember this. At least this is how I feel. I'm not expecting everyone to feel how I feel. Like baseball's an emotional game. Fandom's emotional. But has Tanner been great this year? No, he hasn't been great. Has he been as bad as the numbers seem? The data says no. It's complicated. But
some data says yes. Some data says no.
Yeah. And the truth is always it's somewhere in the middle, right? Like he should be pitching better. He could be pitching better. He certainly has had some bad luck too in there too. And again, all those things can be true at once. It doesn't have to be either or. Let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk about not a surprise, but Cooper Ingle played some left field for Columbus on Sunday. That's the first time in a pro game he has played a position other than catcher besides DH. But in college, he did play some outfield. And I know we've had people in the comments who are talking about why is Bo Naylor taking time away from Cooper Ingle or Kody Huff at catcher? And Jeff, you correctly pointed out, it doesn't matter for Kody Huff. Like they know what he can do at catcher.
Yeah.
His area of focus had to be the bat. And by all accounts, Kody Huff has done a great job with the bat, which by the way, Jeff, Kody Huff played third base on Sunday. That's also I found to be that very interesting
and,
too.
And it's always interesting when a guy repeats the level. Sometimes we take too much from a guy's even
there is batted ball data for Huff that does support legitimate changes. Like
there is, but there's also when a guy repeats a level, we often see
if he was doing the same things in terms of,
but no, we see some guys get a bump from just repeating the level. Like we also see sometimes that is that was my knock on. There's a few guys where that's been my knock over the years.
Oh, it happens. Sure, it happens. But I'm saying, is he going to be a great offensive player? No, and there's going to be the gap is big, but
he's probably your best case is a plus defensive backup. At least an average defensive backup catcher.
Yeah, I think there's a chance he could be above average defensively. I think there's
I think defensively. I think offensively,
mediocre,
again, AAA stats.
I think you're talking like an 80 WRC plus.
Yes,
70. Yeah. Yes, not too. Yep. Anyway, so let me ask you this: Cooper Ingle in left field or Ralphy Velazquez? Who is the guy that really should be getting left field reps as it relates to their future with the Guardians? Because my take here is Cooper Ingle is a guy who could be a trade asset. And the Guardians clearly don't think his future is a catcher. There's a lot of people who think that his future probably isn't catcher. And there might be teams willing to put up with his defense. And I'm not saying he's a bad defender, but there's room to grow.
Below average.
There is still strides he needs to make a catcher. And he may never make them as far as his throwing arm is concerned. Like he may just never have a stronger arm. And that's the problem, among other things.
Yeah, I mean,
if the other team is okay with that, there's no harm moving into left field. So who should be getting more left field reps, Ralphie or Cooper Ingle?
Just to give an example, like Yainer Diaz is the classic example of a guy who was never going to catch here, who went someplace else, and people got really mad for a long time. If you look at Yainer, he's another one of those guys that great rookie season, and then he's gotten worse every single year since. So it sometimes just doesn't always work out long term, and the defense was always an issue. So there are
bad this year, by the way.
He's really bad this year. It's been a decrease. As much as one of our commenters likes to tell me that that's a completely wrong point of view, it's like there's too much data to back up too many examples of that. It's not always the case, but it's a higher percentage than one would think. But so the Yainer is an example. I think when you're looking at this, I don't know, like what I really need to see with Ingle to say, like, I think Ingle is the one who more want to see out there because, Ralphie never ran very well, and Ingle was at least kind of closer to an average runner. I really haven't like sat down and like stopwatched him in a long, long time. So I'd have to see like how he handles the position. It's been a long time since he has played outfield, but I think it's good for him to get out there and get those reps because, if Quan continues to struggle, if Angel actually ends up, not being as good as he was a month. I mean, he was close to average this month, but as the month went on, he got worse. Like they kind of still need probably one more outfielder. So there's worse things. I mean, the same issues with Cooper are still there, that he has the highest walk rate in AAA. And I know people are like, oh, isn't that a good thing? It's like, it is until you see that he's got the lowest swing rate. And then it's that hyper passivity that just doesn't translate well. Like the guys with this profile just tend to, it's what they do in AAA is unsustainable. So it's when you mix that with like the very low max EVs, I know people would be like, he's got 8 home runs. I'm like, yeah, helps when you play in that park. And I know he has some on the road as well, but see if he can do it. Like I'm not opposed to letting him run out there in left field, and maybe there's a pathway to him being an above average left fielder. Unfortunately, I think for him, no matter what he does, it's not going to be good enough because the expectation is through the roof because of the stats. And we'll just keep saying like, AAA stats don't really matter. And I mean, he does things fantastically well, like the pull air. We know, he makes good decisions. He doesn't expand the zone. There's a lot of positives. He barrels, he hits the sweet spot, but he's probably, I've talked about before, your best outcome is something like Liam Hicks. And Liam Hicks is a terrible defender with probably lower exit velos than Liam Hicks. But like Liam Hicks is a terrible defender, and it works for Miami. Like it's going to take the right team to let him play catcher.
Agreed. Yeah, I think catcher probably is not his best bet for the future, and this only increases his value to either Cleveland or as far as a trade. I know everyone's going to say like, don't trade away our best hitting catcher prospect in the minors, and I get that. Like,
I mean, everyone said the same thing. Got mad at me when I said trade Mejia. Like, and I was told he'd win batting titles. And then people all said the same thing when Bo Naylor was coming up, and I said there's some warts in that profile. It's like, it's so hard to say with any catcher.
It's the same warts with Ingle, except Bo had more raw power.
Yeah, and Ingle has better swing decisions. Like Bo can chase. Ingle didn't have
yes, there is that. All right, we'll continue to talk about Cooper Ingle in the outfield. We also want to get into some draft talk and talk about some of the players that stood out the first weekend of regionals that are of note to the Guardians. Can we give a quick shout out, Jeff? I got a couple shout outs I want to bring up. So there was, first of all, thank everybody who tagged me on Twitter or saw me on the broadcast on Saturday. Irrelevant. I just can't believe many that people saw me and recognized me on TV enough to point that out on social media. So thank you, I guess. I ran into a listener. We were walking down the tunnel who's an everydayer, and I didn't get his name because I was not feeling my best that morning, and I was not very talkative. So I didn't get his name. So I apologize for that, but shout out to that Guardians fan. And then the other one, I definitely did get their name, and I wrote it down, and now I'm having a hard time accessing it on my phone. I'm going to also shout out my wife. It's her birthday today, and my uncle Nick and Aunt Wendy, who do listen to the podcast. My wife doesn't listen to the podcast. So Jacob is the fan that I met during the photo day. So shout out to Jacob. My wife doesn't listen to the podcast, but I'll wish her a happy birthday anyway. And it's my uncle's birthday and my aunt. And I know they listen. And then somebody said had a note about, or was it you who said, oh, Stephen Vogt knows about Locked On? And I said, chances are he does not, because my wife doesn't listen. So if my wife doesn't listen.
Yes, that was me. Yeah.
I don't think Stephen Vogt is aware, as he shouldn't be. I would not recommend Stephen Vogt or any member of the Guardians listening to the show. It's not something they should be spending their time on. As far as Ralphie goes or Cooper goes in the outfield, I definitely think it's a worthwhile endeavor for them. And it's not because of Bo taking away reps from them. I think it's just a more realistic opportunity to create more versatility for Cooper and enhance his future again with either Cleveland or somebody else. But realistically, like it or not, this team puts a heavy emphasis on catcher defense, and it's hard to predict or hard to see if Cooper's ever going to meet that threshold for them. He's a good enough athlete to play left field. You can hide his arm out there. It's another way to get his bat in the lineup. And if you really like the bat anyway, maybe it's fine. It doesn't matter. I definitely would like to see Ralphy. Ralphy did play outfield over the weekend as well in Columbus. I would like to see more of that too, because I want to find any pathway to get that bat in the lineup. Like, I know you believe left field defense is very important.
Most of the balls get hit to left field. I think it's too valuable. I'd rather see Ralphie in right field for that reason.
And that's why I want to have this debate, because it's more likely Ingle is a better left fielder than Ralphie. Let's be honest. Like, Ralphie is the bat you want, but Ingle's going to be the better defensive left fielder of the two. And maybe it'll be average. I don't think it'll be Stephen Kwan, but it'll be good enough to not have to worry about hiding outside of his arm. So, but then again, you want to know what? I didn't think Stephen Kwan had a great arm at the time either, but he's found a way to make it work. So maybe Cooper can as well in his own way. Who knows? But it's an interesting development that I want to keep watching, and I think it's a smart move by the Guardians to do it both ways, and hopefully Cooper takes to it and, is not put off by the move. I wouldn't think he would be, because any chance you have to make the majors, who cares what position it is? Like, you just want to get to the majors and play and prove yourself. And for the most part, if you can hit, they're going to find a spot for you. Like, Juan Brito's defense was awful, but let's be honest, if he could hit, if he was hitting, pretty sure they would have continued to stick with it because he was hitting. As much as they value defense, like, Lozano might be up here anyway, but if Brito was hitting like Brito, shown in AAA, which again, there's that gap, Jeff. I'm pretty sure Brito wouldn't have been set down so quickly. He would have gotten more run if his offense wasn't as bad as his defense.
Yeah, and especially because it's not like he plays catcher, which they value, and I do think they do value certain positions. Like, it seems like there's been over the years a few positions they'll put a little more weight on, but yeah, I think Ingle was a 5th rounder. Like, he was a kind of a mid-round pick. He's been a great story for them, and it's just another way to maybe I think it's more about trying to find a way to have him help this team this year than increasing trade value, because, like, honestly, his trade value is best as a potential catcher, because how hard it is to find that. And there are teams that value the defensive side of it more than others, but it's going to be interesting to see how Cleveland continues to approach that this year, because again, if they're going to keep him on roster, you got to add him to the 40-man at the end of the year. So if you're looking for someone who could potentially come up and maybe hit or work a lot of pitches and this and that, like, he could get a shot this year before it's all said and done. So get those reps, and hopefully maybe he'll get a chance in the outfield.
I think that's exactly right. I think that's a great point, that it's the best chance he has to help the team this year. He's definitely not going to catch for this team this year. There's no room. So if you're going to get his bat in the majors this year, it's going to be the outfield somewhere. And it would be great if it wasn't Stuart Fairchild, which, by the way, I got to meet Stuart Fairchild over the weekend. Very nice kid. Super nice. Nothing personal. Just
it was not great. It
was not great. It was not great. All right, let's talk about some Guardians draft guys from the weekend, Jeff. Do you want to start, or do you want me to? Because I know you didn't catch as much as you would have liked.
Well, it's a little bit here and there. So, like, I think when we're discussing some of the guys we talked about throughout the course of this year, Aidan Robbins had a big weekend. I don't know if he's a Cleveland guy because he's a right-handed bat, but he's someone I've been high on throughout this process and keep bringing up.
4 dingers.
He continues to perform well. But I think, the biggest roller coaster for me in this draft season has been Reese, who I thought was a top 10 prospect in the fall at into February, and then was okay in non-conference and had a rough start of the year in SEC ball and was really scuffling. Picked it up and has had a good week. And, maybe left-handed bat, big dude. Very
big dude. Jeez.
I think he could. I don't know. I think he was in Kylie's mock, and I do think he is a logical candidate. 6'3", 200 is his listed weight. Started at Houston, then spent the last 2 years in Mississippi State. 21 home runs this year, 21 home runs last year. It doesn't chase too much. Doesn't.
What does he do, Jeff? He hits left-handed.
Yeah. And it's like, he's interesting because he actually doesn't. His contact rate is pretty good compared to his chase rate. His chase rate is worse than his contact rate, but his exit velo is up this year, and he's definitely hitting the ball hard. So I think there's a logic there. I know Everydayer Cheeks McNeil likes him.
Yeah, Cheeks Malone does like Ace
or Malone, not McNeil. McNeil's his real name. I was combining.
Yeah, I do like Ace Reese a lot. When I saw that mock from Kylie, I texted you about it, and you're like, it seems realistic. And I did more digging, and I was like, yeah, Ace Reese is a guy I would not be opposed to. It's not the best college bat class as far as the first round goes at that point of the draft. Like the top three is, well, there's two college bats at the top that are clearly top 2 or top 3 picks, but
yeah,
that far down the board, the college bats are kind of iffy. Like if we're looking at the data, I know, and this, he didn't really play well this weekend, or at least didn't stand out, but like the data, I feel like on Caden Sorrell and Reese, Ace Reese are like very similar. Just if you look at the data you have collected. I still like Sorrell, but I know he's been more of a mixed bag.
Misses, so he chases so much more.
I don't think he does. Look at the data you have compiled. I'm pretty sure they're pretty much 23. It's 24% chase rate by Caden Sorrell, and Ace Reese is at 25.6. So actually, Ace Reese chases a little bit more.
I thought for some reason there was a really deep red on Sorrell. I gotta figure out which one that was.
Unless the percentile is 37 versus 27. Maybe I'm reading the charts wrong. Either way, it doesn't matter because Sorrell didn't have that big of a weekend, but I was just thinking that, and because I obviously really like Sorrell. But I like the idea of Ace Reese.
Oh, it's Sorrell is he misses all in the zone. He is one of the worst in zone contact guys. That's what it is.
What it is. So the chase rates are similar, but the contact rate is worse. Okay, interesting. But yeah, you said Robbins. I mean, if he didn't hit right-handed, he'd be an obvious fit. I'm trying to think who else had a really good weekend. I mean, Von Lackey had a great weekend, but unfortunately, he is nowhere.
He's not
nowhere near.
100 eats. Who could be if they go college on in that range?
I would not like. Man, like the track record scares me, but the stuff is so good. The size is good, and there's a lot of really fun traits there with Hunter Dietz. It's just that he's he doesn't have the track record, so that's always
been some health.
Yeah, there's been some health problems that scares me, but my goodness, did he look really good this weekend overall. I mean, Justin LeBron had a decent weekend. I know, like, I don't know what's going to happen with him. Like, I don't know how far he falls. Is Justin LeBron, God, I know the approach doesn't really match what happened last year with Cleveland, but like, does he fall into that category of guys who came into the year as like top 5 pick potential? Like, if he falls to 19, is that like a case where like Cleveland's like, okay, this is a top 5 guy and he's here at 19, we're going to pounce on value? Like, do you think there's any scenario where that makes sense or is possible?
No, because he's not a shortstop. He's a bad shortstop. He has the bad zone miss. Like, he just doesn't fit their type overall. Like, the difference between him and Jace Lavalette, like, there's a similarity in like, hey, these are guys that everyone kind of liked, and they also had massive red flags that either the guys were going to improve or they weren't going to go in the top 5. Like Jace Lavalette's contact rate and his K rate was one of those things. Like, he was never, like, one of the common lines was like, oh, well, this guy was going to be the first overall pick. He had a down year. It's like, no, he had to improve where he was never going to be the first overall pick. He had a down year because he didn't improve. It's the same thing with, like, it's a difference between when you have a high point. Like, they like those guys who maybe had a stronger year the year before, and there wasn't necessarily a thing that tripped them up. Whereas with Lavalette, they took the gamble on the profile. With Campbell, it's like, I mean, he misses in the zone, he expands, he's a bad defender. The bat at ball data isn't particularly great for him, if you're really honest and look at what he did. Like, he's a good athlete, and he hit a lot of home runs. The value is no longer there, is what you're saying. Yeah, I just don't think the value's there. I mean, like, his exit velo's fine. His chase rate actually isn't that bad now that I look at it. It's like, he's not a shortstop, and I don't think anyone thinks he is at this point. So I think that's kind of hard for him.
Yeah, I'm just wondering because, like,
I also don't think he gets there. I think someone else probably jumps on him just because of, like, there's a lot of it's not a good draft. It's not, and there's a lot of orgs that, there's rumor of Baltimore being on him, which would make a lot of sense. And I could even, old school Nationals would have definitely popped him.
It makes sense for Baltimore. Real quickly before we get out of here, should we wave goodbye to any hopes and dreams of Tyler Bell at 19?
Yeah, that's done. That's
he had a great weekend for Kentucky. Kentucky's moving on from regionals, and he had a great weekend. You and I both, I really got, even though the shoulder injury and the impending surgery scares the daylights out of me, I was still on board.
Yeah, I think it's top 10 talent, and I think everyone else is waking up to that as well. Thank you all for joining us. Remember to tune in for tomorrow, and go Guardians, go.